Hey guys, welcome to the I Hope to Hear This podcast. Today I have with me a very special friend. Special because I've known you for a very long time.
Yeah, for several years now, right?
I want to say close to a decade. Like the first time I met you.
Oh,
It was before you guys moved back. It was when you were here like the first time in Georgia. Do you even remember?
I have no clue. I remember us going to Tanzania together.
Yeah, that was like not that long ago. Like
4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about because that was when like your family came to Georgia the second time, right?
Like moving back to Georgia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But before you were in Georgia, when the church we went to was New Soul Baptist Church, not Sugarloaf.
Huh.
You were like a little kid.
I never remember that.
So you were like a little kid. Rachel was like a baby.
Uh,
So you might not even remember, but I was in maybe not even college yet when you guys moved here. Yeah.
for the second time.
No. The first time
first
when you
time.
guys, when I first met you and your family. Yeah.
Dang.
But anyhow, so I mean, I've definitely known your dad for a long time. He's a pastor. He's one of the pastors at our church. And you are, I don't know if you guys are watching, but he's repping his school.
Yeah.
Duke is a. Are you a sophomore now? Going into sophomore year?
right now, yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. So without further ado, Josh Suh, thank you for being on the podcast.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. This is going to be an interesting conversation because you're doing something that I have like zero idea about. Like all the way from, I kind of understand because we had that conversation like on Saturday when we ate together, like why you're doing it, but I have no clue like how you got started. I have no clue how you're even going about doing what you're doing. And yeah, if you could elaborate on even why you're doing it, like that would be really enlightening for me. But just to give the context to the listeners, you are like you said, a sophomore at Duke, but did you found the nonprofit?
Yeah, with another student from Duke.
Okay.
I started working on, it's called Insects for Humanity, the nonprofit.
Insects what?
For Humanity.
Okay.
Got the name from Habitat for Humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And started working on it summer after my junior year of high school. But it wasn't until I got to Duke that I actually started making some meaningful progress.
Oh, so you were a high schooler when
Exactly,
you thought about
yeah.
the idea. So
I mean,
how did you? Okay, so Insects for Humanity. Before we even get to what it is you're doing, like, no, actually, let's get into how you got drawn into it. Right? Like, what was the conception of it? Like, did you wake up one day and say, "Hey, I want to do something with insects for humanity," or like how did?
it was the insect farming itself was just like a random idea. Back in high school, I volunteered a ton with like the church, my school, like local nonprofits in the community, and I thought it'd be a cool idea to sort of start a nonprofit, expand on my service I already did back in high school. And I had the idea to start a nonprofit. It was like a pet project, nothing too serious. Back then, I didn't even want to go into like nonprofits. I sort of wanted to be like a doctor or epidemiologist or whatnot, go into health. And it was sort of like a pet, smaller project on the side.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what I would start the nonprofit about. I had no clue. And I just remember just looking online and looking up. It was innovations in the food industry was the exact thing I looked up on Google just to get ideas about a nonprofit.
Wait, so how did you even land on that? Like, how did you even think about innovative things happening in the food space?
It seemed like food security, water security were like key issues around the world. So I thought just looking into sort of transportation, food, water, that seemed sort of like core issues that were pressing people around the world today.
Yeah.
And so just looking online, see how we could start a nonprofit in those sectors. And I found an article online about insect farming. And I never ever heard the idea before. And it just seemed really, really interesting because there's so many benefits.
Yeah. Like
sustainable and like really accessible for the global poor. I could go into more details about this later on, but there's just so many benefits to insect farming. And I never knew about these, and I was just like, holy cow, this is just like an untapped nonprofit that I could just explore. And that's sort of how I got into it. I had no experience with insect farming whatsoever, no experience with like nonprofit management, fundraising, etc. Nothing under my belt.
Yeah.
I just thought, let's start it and just see where we go. And now we're here today.
So when you started, what process did you have to go through to start it?
It was a painstaking one, to say the least. Like I didn't know, like I said, I didn't know anything. So it was just me doing research and sort of learning and failing as I went along. Of course, there's like the paperwork you need to do, like file for incorporation, apply for like tax exempt status as a nonprofit, all that paperwork. That was okay, but I did a lot of things that weren't necessary. Like I would draft these massive business plans, like these 30-page single-spaced documents, just like these completely today they're like completely useless. But just these really massive business plans and fundraising plans, just all these different plans. And I spent like a year just researching, drafting these plans, and nothing came of it. Like it was just me getting my thoughts out there. And because I'm really afraid of uncertainty. I used to be. And so I draft these plans as a way to combat that uncertainty around how I would build this nonprofit.
Wow.
And about, I don't know exactly when, but I remember just a year after I started this, it was like senior year, I think, of high school, I had got nothing done, and it was just really hard on me. Just the fact that I'd been doing this for a year now, just doing research on how to farm these insects, and that the fact that we had done nothing on the ground in Africa at all was just really pressing on me. And I remember just,
you were a high schooler at the time.
Exactly, yeah.
Wow.
But,
you were a very ambitious young person.
Yeah, I mean, just I was fiercely independent and just wanted to go wherever I wanted to go after whatever I wanted to get, and so just didn't let the fact that I was a high schooler student just stand in my way.
Yeah.
But I guess the disadvantage was I didn't know what the heck I was doing.
Yeah.
Like it's high school, no experience, and like I said earlier, just spent a year writing these now useless plans, and I remember just senior year of high school, it was a shower thought. I was in the shower, and I just remember thinking, like, I need to stop planning so much, just writing these useless plans, and just actually do something. And so I thought, screw these plans. I'm just gonna go in completely blind and just focus solely on getting things done. Like this very strong bias towards action. And so that's when I started, like, connecting with NGOs in the Congo, being like, hey, I want to set up these experiments to see if we can farm insects, and just really getting stuff done. That was like the point where that was a year after I started.
Wow. So just to circle back to kind of these plans. So what type of things did you write into these plans?
Everything from just how I thought I would farm these insects, to fundraising, to working with local communities and training people across the continent to farm insects. But the issue was as I went along, I would learn more and more about just like nonprofit management, farming insects, new knowledge that would make my old plans obsolete. And so like you're researching how to farm insects, and like you'll see one method, and then you'll kind of write a plan on like how to like train people to do that kind of stuff. But then you'll see a different method and say, oh, this is much better. So this plan that I like put around this first method is useless. So I'm gonna have to restart. Was that kind of like the cycle? Yeah, that too. And just a lot of I remember like researching online how to start and run a nonprofit, and people were saying, you need a board of directors, you need to set up this fundraising apparatus, you need to do this and this and this. And I was like, holy cow, that's what I need to do. But just looking back, focusing on like getting a board of directors, setting up like a sort of fundraising apparatus, that like of course the board of directors, like they were super helpful with the feedback they gave me and just the connections I made. But a lot of that sort of setting up the nonprofit in retrospect was useless. And so because it's not like the setting up that counts, it's what you actually do, like the actions you achieve and the steps you take. And like I said earlier, I just decided to just sort of jump into whatever challenge I had to do, just blind, without planning. Like that was my new sort of radical strategy, and that produced a lot more results than I had in the past year.
Wow. So then you figured out by the end of so was it like the end of your senior year in high school when you were like, I want to do more action-based things?
Exactly, yeah.
So what was kind of your first action that you took in order to kind of get this off the ground?
It was partnering with an NGO in the Congo. It's called Cadmium.
Cadmium?
Cadmium. And basically just setting up these prototypes because right now the dominant method for we were focusing on this insect called palm weevil larva. And the dominant way to farm these larvae is for people to either go out into these forests, find palm trees. Like these larvae would infest and grow in palm trees, and so local harvesters would go into the forest, find these palms, cut them down, and harvest the larvae inside. And that method was really labor intensive, unproductive, and unsustainable for like local palm populations.
Right.
And so we were just trying to find a way to farm these larvae in plastic tubs using either like palm materials or locally available crops and agricultural byproducts. And like the past year, I was just really hammered down on researching how to farm these larvae, but we had no proof that these methods would work. And so I just launched a partnership with this NGO to set up these prototypes, and we launched the prototypes, started farming according to the methods I researched. And back in August of 2020, my first month at Duke, and they utterly failed. Like it was just a complete, utter failure.
Wait. So how did you find this NGO in the first place? Did you just kind of look them up on Google, or?
Yeah, I found I just looked up NGOs in the Congo, and I found this PDF with email addresses for a bunch of different NGOs, and I literally emailed them one by one, saying like, "Hey, I had this idea to farm this palm weevil larva. Would you be interested in partnering with us so we can get some prototypes running?" And Cadmium was the first NGO that replied, and I was just like, let's go with them and see where it ends up.
So was it like you asking them, hey, let's try farming it this way, like this is the materials you need, this is the setup that you'll need, can you go ahead and try it to see if it works? Was that the process?
Exactly, yeah. And actually Cadmium, like these palm weevil larvae are massively popular across the Congo. And in fact, Cadmium had tried to sort of develop a method to farm these larvae. Since like the high labor intensity and unsustainability of the existing methods for harvesting palms, that was sort of a major production bottleneck. And so there's like a really low supply but incredibly high demand, since like locals just love this larva. And so Cadmium had tried in the past to farm these larvae in containers, and they had failed. And so they were already receptive to an idea of, hey, why don't we restart this experiment with this new guy from America and see if we can succeed. But lo and behold, it completely failed in August.
So what does a failure look like? You put larvae and like these things into a tub and they all died, or?
So we put we got some palm material, put it in a plastic tub, put some palm weevil adults, and waited for about 2 months, see if there would be any larvae. And 2 months later, there were absolutely zero larvae. And I was just devastated. I spent like a whole year just researching, only for literally nothing to come out of it.
Yeah.
And at first I was just devastated. All that work just gone. But the people from Cadmium, they're like, let's not give up. Let's continue trying. Like there's so much potential if we figure out a way to farm these larvae. This could help impact the lives of so many people across the Congo and West Africa and the world. And so we continued working. And this summer, I traveled to the Congo to meet with our partners and continue prototyping. And we had our sort of breakthrough idea.
Oh yeah.
We instead of using palm materials like we had in the past.
Is it safe to share this in public space?
I mean, yeah, it's not really a competition.
Oh, okay.
Like, if other people use our methods, like that's fine. Like, our goal is to, sort of scale insect farming across Africa and across the world, not to sort of monetize in a sense. So.
Oh yeah, that's right. Oh, that's awesome. Okay.
But the whole winning combination was using, it's called cassava. It's this
sorry. Can we give 1 second? I don't know if the listeners can hear, but there's and I don't know if you guys know, I live right in front of like a dog hotel. So there's a ton of barking happening right now. When we tested it, I don't think the mics picked it up, but just in case. I don't, because I feel like you're about to get into something very important. Just want to let it pass a little bit. Okay, yeah, please proceed.
But yeah, there's this, it's called cassava, and it's this immensely popular staple. It's this vegetable, tubular vegetable, very common across the Congo. And one of the common products made from this vegetable is cassava flour. And so instead of using palm trees, I thought, why don't we grow these larvae inside cassava flour, with some other ingredients that I thought could provide sort of the necessary nutrients for these larvae to grow, like palm oil, avocados, and etc. And put together, I thought all like this substrate would have all the would meet the nutritional requirements for these larvae to develop. And lo and behold, they did. We got a good amount of larvae from prototyping over the summer. But the issue is over in, I believe, Thailand, palm weevil farming is sort of on an industrial scale, much more developed in sort of South Asia, Thailand area. And they achieve much greater outputs than we did in the summer. So I thought, there has to be a way if farmers in Thailand can, achieve such high production, there's got to be a way here in the Congo we can achieve that similar level of production. And so after this summer prototypes, we're currently working to sort of relaunch prototypes to see which variables influence sort of the output of palms from substrates, and to sort of optimize the model so that local farmers who use our method of farming larvae can sort of maximize their output and their profits.
Wow. So is there a specific reason you chose the Congo as a location, or?
It was primarily I decided to focus on palm weevil larvae, just based on their nutritional benefits, how easy they are to farm, and I first looked at countries where palm weevil larvae were commonly consumed, and it was like West Africa, and then I searched for countries where the climate conditions were favorable for year-round for farming these larvae, and just based on the climate conditions and how popular the insect was, Congo seemed like a pretty good choice, and there seemed to be a very high demand for sort of economic development projects in the Congo, and so that's why I thought Congo, and never looked back since.
Wow. And so I'm just trying to piece the entire story together. It sounds like, tell me if I got anything wrong, you literally started with a desire to do something, right? Like something good, and so you said let's start an NGO because you were already kind of doing things with the church, with schools, and then like you're thinking about it, this seems good, you kind of landed on the broad topic of innovative foods, and then you landed on insects, this is great, and you landed on a specific insect type food that gets eaten popularly at our location, that there is a need for a more efficient growing process, right? And then so you with all that in mind, you reached out to a nonprofit, and then you had done research to see what methods of farming might be, I'm guessing, cost effective, right? Like it has to be cheap enough that local farmers can do it, but it needs to provide enough output that it's profitable, right?
Exactly.
Wow. And then did you decide to go to the Congo because there weren't enough results happening, or did you go when there were results happening? Like
when there weren't results happening. And
so you said this isn't going well enough, so I need to go there myself.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh wow.
It was just sort of let's go there ourselves, see what we can do about it, and see if we can change the repeated failures we've been seeing over and over. So
like, how long were you there?
I was planning to stay for about 2 months. I was there for about a month and a half because I got malaria and had to come home.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, actually, can you tell us that story now? Like, what happened?
Oh yeah. So it was a few weeks after I first touched down in Kinshasa, I went on sort of a solo trip to a rainforest because where I was staying, it's on a very hilly area, but at the base of the hill are these really dense forests, like pretty much rainforests. And I was really curious about these forests, since they're nowhere out here in like Suwannee, Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah.
And so I decided to, no one would come with me, so I just went by myself with like a.
Wait, but the Congo trip, was that you by yourself, or?
Yeah, the entire trip I was the only one from the States.
Okay.
I was visiting our colleagues, our partners in the Congo.
Okay.
So I was staying with them, but they're all working on their own projects, and when I was free, I decided to why not explore the local area a bit, the rainforest in particular. And so I got packed some first aid supplies, a few protein bars from home, and a Swiss Army knife, and just literally went out into the rainforest. And it was just super cool, meeting a bunch of super cool people. And my French isn't the best, and so but I was still able to sort of navigate people who I came across in the forest. And I remember just thinking, man, there's so many bugs in this forest, up in the hilly area. It was in the summer when I went, the Congo's equivalent of winter. And so there were a lot less mosquitoes than I expected up in our hilly area. But down in the dense forests, there were a ton of mosquitoes. And I didn't think much about it. But about a week later or so, I remember coming home. It was a really tough day. A lot of physical labor, transporting materials for our larva prototypes. Yeah. And then I just come home and crash in bed. And I remember just feeling really, really cold all over my body. And then I start thinking, maybe I'm just tired, whatever. It'll go in a few hours after I eat some Tylenol or whatever. Didn't go away in a few hours. And that's when I realized it's something more serious.
Oh gosh.
And I mean, at first it was kind of funny at first, just this American kid coming to Congo and getting malaria. I look at this dude, but and I remember the first night I knew I had malaria. I didn't think much about it. I was just looking at memes and just laughing at myself for getting malaria. And then the next few days is when the symptoms really started to go south. Yeah. It would fluctuate between really intense chills or really hot fevers and every few hours. So I wouldn't be able to sleep for more than a few hours at night because I'd always wake up either freezing cold or freezing cold to the point where no amount of clothes could keep me warm. Yeah. Or to the point where I was so hot that I could strip naked and it'd still be so hot. And just fevers and the chills, I lost all my appetite. I probably wouldn't have eaten anything if I didn't force myself to eat some protein, the same protein bars I took through the forest. Yeah. Just really really fatigued. I couldn't walk more than 10 feet without collapsing. And
was there a hospital in that area, or?
There was a hospital, but that's sort of my last resort if things got out of hand, which they kind of did. I developed I knew things got out of hand when I started developing breathing issues.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, and I couldn't really breathe too well. And that's when my colleagues were like, okay, this is time for a hospital now. Yeah. And so we my pretty much the only way to get around in the area I was a rural small community was by motorcycle across some mountainous terrain, sandy roads, dirt roads, really treacherous terrain. And I remember just riding to the hospital. It's a 30-minute motorcycle ride. I was on the back with 2 other people in the front. Just super bumpy road, and every single bump would just send stabbing pains all across my lungs, and it just killed me. And then arriving at the hospital, it's this 2-3 room little shack, no running water, no electricity. Their sink was outside the hospital. There was this tub of water, and you would turn this little plastic faucet to get a little stream of water, and that's how you wash your hands and whatnot. Yeah. And I remember thinking okay, we should just trust the people here. They know what they're doing. Yeah. So I wasn't too worried. Yeah. And then going to the doctor, he's just this really big, really imposing man, and he starts getting frustrated at my really weak French. I knew a little bit of French from when I took French classes at Duke. Yeah. It was just still very elementary level. Yeah. And him just asking me my symptoms, my medical history, etc., and not really being able to communicate, that was sort of getting on his nerves. And he gets to the last question, if I had any allergies. And I said, the usual, the dust, pollen, etc. And at the end, I mentioned I had an allergy to penicillin. And
Dude, you have penicillin allergy?
Yeah, penicillin
allergy.
Okay. Yeah. And the doctor, he seemed to nod and sort of call for a nurse. I don't know if he understood, but I was assuming he did, since he called for the nurse. And the nurse brought over this large vial of this milky white substance, along with the IV needle. And as soon as I see that needle, I start freaking out. I'm okay, I did not expect to get some sort of injection. Yeah. When I came to the hospital, I thought I would get pills and be sent home. Yeah. Whatnot, malaria pills. That was not the case. And then that's when I start kind of freaking out a little bit more.
Yeah.
And being like, is this needle clean? I let my paranoia get the best of me. I'm like, is this needle clean? Am I gonna be safe? Like, you can't help but think those thoughts. And like when you're in a shack that's a hospital, with no running water, no electricity, and the doctor assures me it's gonna be fine. So I'm like, okay, let's do it. And the nurse injects the entire vial inside my arm, and not even a few seconds later, I feel my throat just start clenching up. Like, I start panicking. I'm like freaking out. I'm like, okay, my breathing is just like restricted right now. I feel my throat just closing in every second. And I'm like screaming at the doctor, the nurse, and they're just as confused as I am. Like, they don't know what to do. They're just standing there, like shell shocked. And so, in like a sense of desperation, I just throw myself on a hospital bed and just hope for the best. And I remember like closing my eyes, and just as I still feel my throat sort of closing in, just thinking like, am I gonna die on this bed in the Congo? And just having to prepare myself mentally for the fact that if I close my eyes, there's a very real chance that I might not open them again. And that was the scariest I've ever been in my life. Like, I've done scary things like climb construction cranes and explore abandoned prisons and all this.
I saw. We can talk about that later. I saw that too. But okay.
All this, pretty scary stuff. But I've never been that scared in my entire life. Just like so helpless on a bed, not being able to do anything. But like I think it was a few minutes. Felt a lot longer than that. But I feel my throat sort of loosening up again. I'm still really hard to breathe. I have to like really put some force into breathing, but I can breathe again, and like I can still breathe. And I was just really, really glad that I didn't die on that bed. And the funny thing was, like, after, like, during my whole allergic reaction, nobody did anything. They were just like standing around.
Wait, so did they inject you with, was it penicillin?
Apparently it was ampicillin. I remember getting a list of chemicals in that vial, and one of them was ampicillin. And I think that's where the allergic reaction came from.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And the really sad thing too is they tried to give me a second injection after my first one. And this time I was like, okay, let's not get any more injections. And I asked for like a list of chemicals in that second vial. And I forgot which one it was, but one of the chemicals for the second vial that they tried to inject inside me was banned in the EU for, I think it was banned or restricted or something like that. Banned or because of all the potential side effects it could cause.
Wait, so like as you're getting these, like the list of chemicals, are you like looking it up on your phone to see if it's...
Yeah, I actually had 2G signal throughout the Congo, thanks to my cell phone plan. And so that was helpful. Wow. I was just like, wow.
So you declined the second?
Yeah, I declined the second one. And the funny thing was, like, after the whole fiasco, not even a few hours later, I went back with me and my colleagues. We went back to where we were working, and we were just like really lighthearted about it. Like, it was just like, look at this American guy not being able to take his injections.
Like, he almost died.
It was like whatever. But like, my favorite picture of all time on my cell phone is like a selfie my colleague took of me and my other colleague, and we were like all really jubilant, really happy, just all smiles. And it was just like a few hours before I was on a hospital bed, not knowing if I was gonna die on that bed. Just a few hours ago. But.
And so, how is that? Why, like, did you leave like the day after, or like, what happened? Like, why was your trip cut short?
I couldn't leave right after. I still had all the symptoms of malaria that probably would have barred me from traveling, flying back. So I waited about a week or so, I think, and then. But the funny thing is, the injections actually worked. And I don't know if it's because like the panic or just like the injections or whatnot. But the symptoms started getting better slowly but surely. And in a week or two, I was just fine. Only had a little bit of raspiness when I took a breath, but I was pretty much good to go. And yeah.
Wow. And then you changed your flight as soon as you could to get back.
Yeah, and arranged for my colleagues to sort of finish the work I was doing, and then that's when I flew back home.
Yeah. And then did you immediately go to a hospital or like?
Yeah. And I went to urgent care, and the doctors were like, nothing wrong with your lungs or whatever. And I was fine. Yeah.
That's great. Wow. Wait, and so just so we kind of have a better understanding, like your colleagues, are they like Congo natives?
Yeah, they're Congo natives.
And then did they speak English, or how did you guys communicate?
So one of them spoke English, but it wasn't the best. Hardly anyone in the area spoke English. And my French, they spoke French though. And my French it was passable, but not the best. And so when I couldn't speak French, I would use Google Translate on my phone. And that's how we would communicate. But all the times it was like unreliable, the connection was weak.
Yeah.
And so it was difficult, but not impossible. And a lot of times I just communicate with my really basic French plus facial expressions plus hand gestures.
Wow.
And I was like, yeah. And now I'm going back this summer, but I'll learn a lot more French before I go.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
hopefully this kind of thing won't happen again.
Yeah, and you should take some precautions against mosquitoes.
Yeah.
So,
Actually, I couldn't take enough anti-malarial pills. Like my insurance company wouldn't provide me with the full like the 2 months course of malarial pills.
Right.
So my strategy was, and I know it's wrong now, but you're supposed to take one pill every day. And so I took one pill every 2 days, sort of spread out the supply.
I see. Okay.
And that's not something I would recommend.
Okay. Oh, obviously.
Exactly. From personal experience.
Yeah, from the results of it.
Yeah, but I thought it worked, but it clearly did not.
Wow. That's great. Did you ever go on the Haiti mission trips that we used to go on at our church?
No, my dad did. I remember one of those.
I think I was there with your dad. But there's like a regimen of like anti-malarial pills that you have to take for like certain amount of like days or whatever before you go. So but then you kind of like halved it. You didn't do the full dosage. Wow. Oh, so your colleagues, they're native what's the term for Congo people?
Congolese.
Okay, Congolese people. And so you're literally the only American there at the time, and you're just kind of through sheer force of will, like communicating with these people to figure out how to like make it better. Like, so were they like already funded, or like did you have to provide funding for like the experiments that you were doing?
Insects for Humanity, we had to provide the funding. But we had funding though. Like I had several scholarships in the past, put those towards the nonprofit, and also Duke provided a lot of funding as well.
Awesome!
Wow. Yeah, they provided like over the summer $10,000 for our work, and I was just like, yeah, absolutely crazy. And we used that to sort of fund like travel and prototypes and whatnot. Like the prototypes themselves are like crazy cheap. We could start like let's say farming with 200 substrates, like a massive scale, would cost like what $500 for all the materials. And it's other prototypes for like other nonprofit projects would be like thousands or tens of thousands of dollars, but like insect farming is a very low cost endeavor. Like that's why it's so useful for local farmers in the Congo and across West Africa. Like so very low cost to get involved with insect farming.
So like I know you mentioned this a little bit, but let's get into the details of it. Well, what are the benefits of insects? Because obviously we're talking about farming these insects for eating, right? So like they're, I'm guessing, nutritional value, things like that. So like what are some of the, well, let's put it this way. What is the advantage of eating bugs over, let's say, like beef or pork?
Exactly, yeah. So first, on a very macro level scale, insects are a lot more sustainable than larger livestock like cattle or pigs or etc. To farm equivalent amount of insects as compared to, say, beef, you need a lot less land, a lot less water, a lot less feed. And so that reduced resource demand translates to very real ecological benefits for locals. Like say, if you're farming cattle, you need like grazing land, and grazing land sort of facilitates soil erosion, deforestation, etc. And in areas where the vast majority of people are farmers who depend on the quality of the local environment for their economic livelihoods, like the sort of economic or ecological decline that might come about from like this resource demand you see with larger livestock, it could spell doom for like local economic livelihood.
Right.
And so like not only sustainable, but they're also very nutritional. They like insects, they sort of pack the fibers, the proteins, the healthy fats necessary for human health, nutrients that larger livestock might lack. And but on a more micro scale, though, like the sustainability, sort of the health benefits wouldn't really matter if people don't appreciate the insects and want to consume them. And so, like, just from my time in the Congo and from like surveys we've done in local communities, like locals, especially in the communities where we're working, they see these insects. They consume the insects not only because of like the sort of ecological health benefits, but because of their taste as well. Like I've had like countless number of people when I was in the Congo tell me like this larva, like it's some of their most favorite food, because like it tastes so great. And it also has medicinal properties as well. Like locals use like the larva to help cure pneumonia in children or infertility in men.
Oh, interesting.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. And I haven't looked too deeply into like the sort of the scientific background of like the medicinal properties of these palm weevil larvae, but just in the communities and across West Africa, it seems like there's a lot more to these larvae than just sort of the sustainability and nutritional aspect. Of course, they're very important, and they play a large role in why these people consume the larva. But there's like so much more, like locally, that sort of drive the reason why people consume these larvae.
Have you yourself tried one of these yet?
Actually, I've tried a lot of different insect species like crickets, grasshoppers, silkworms, and whatnot. But when I was in the Congo, I could never get my hands on these larvae because they're so popular.
Wow.
Like I mentioned earlier, like that there's a massive demand for these larvae, but not enough supply. And so like whenever larvae hit the market, they sell out.
So is it like a delicacy?
Yeah, it's like a delicacy. It's like really popular. Not only in the communities where I work in the Congo, but across West Africa, and like different types of insects. Like I remember just reading about like how it's like 2 billion or so people, like a large fraction of the world's population, consume insects regularly. Like they're delicacies across the world. Like in America, we see them as like gross and dirty and just disgusting, but across the world they're viewed completely different. Like as sort of a delicacy, as a superfood almost. Like it's just so many benefits packed into like such a small insect.
I remember reading an article several years ago about how the bang for your buck in terms of eating insects is so much better than like beef and pork, especially because of all the like unhealthy fats that like red meats have, whereas like the bugs don't really have that. And just the way like you were talking about all the sustainability and all that kind of stuff. Like I remember the article saying like if you were to design humanity right now and kind of knowing what we know now, develop our cultures, like our food culture around that, like bugs would be at the top of the list, like, and pork and beef would not be. Like they would be considered inefficient food sources. So wow.
Exactly. Yeah, insects are pretty much the wave of the future. Like it's only like the like America and Europe that's sort of lagging behind in terms of like catching up on this sort of superfood that is insects.
Yeah, I know. Even in Korea, where we're from, like they have, I don't know. Is it bondigi? Like that's silkworm, right?
I believe so. I remember just every time I talk about it with like a Korean person, they always mention like bondegi. I've never had bondegi before. Like maybe next time I go, I could try some.
It's I remember all my uncles always like saying this like really good, but me never having the nerve to eat it. Wow. So what's the end goal of your NGO? Like, is there a like, once we've accomplished this, like our goal, our purpose is complete? Is there anything like that?
I don't think there is an end goal. It's pretty much just scaling insect farming as much as possible. Like right now, like the model we have now, especially in the Congo, there are other NGOs trying to farm insects like in plastic containers, but it seems like they're very localized, or they haven't achieved a very large scale across a country or across a region. And so what we're trying to do is find a method to farm these larvae that's very cheap and accessible for local farmers, so you can scale it broadly as possible, like not only across the Congo, not only across Africa, but across the entire world. And not only these larvae, but other insect species too, because like these insects, like I said, they're the wave of the future. But right now, like not even just with these larvae, the current method of harvesting them is from the wild. Not only is that unsustainable for local insect populations, it's very unproductive and very labor intensive.
And it's like very luck based. You kind of have to go out and
exactly,
hope.
Exactly. And just if we can farm these larvae in a more controlled environment, more sustainably, more cheaply, more with less labor, we could pretty much revolutionize the entire insect market across the world. Like that's what my co-founder and I and my team believe in.
So would you say that improving the scalability of farming these larvae would also help with food shortages that are kind of rampant around the world?
I think it definitely help. But the issue with food shortages isn't just like the availability of food. It's a lot of economic, environmental, political factors that sort of play into why people don't have food. But I think since insect farming is so accessible, you don't need a lot of upfront costs to get involved. I think it could definitely play a role in helping alleviate food insecurity worldwide.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. So you mentioned how you do this with a co-founder. You said it was... Wait, did you started Insects for Humanity yourself, or was it with a partner?
So officially, I started by myself, and then I recruited a team of like board of directors, advisory board, from like the local Atlanta area who've been like super helpful in just providing feedback and whatnot and mentoring. But
so with the board, are they like? How did you go about finding the people for the board?
LinkedIn. I remember I posted a job description on LinkedIn for a board a director's position for a local nonprofit, and so many people responded. And like not just some random people across across the road, but like people who are like just incredibly accomplished in their fields. I remember just being blown away by like how accomplished these people were, and just so blown away by like the fact that they would apply to be on a board of a nonprofit started by an absolutely clueless high school kid. And now my board and I like we're very close, and they've been like invaluable mentors to me and my journey as like I grow the nonprofit too. And after I entered Duke, I was part of, it's called a focus program, where first year students in their first semester at Duke, they can sort of explore a interdisciplinary topic in more detail in like a seminar based group. But everyone in that program, everyone in that group lives together pretty much. And there was another student in that program I met. Her name is Gabrielle, and we lived in the same dorm. We got pretty close, and so over the winter, like she sort of had the same passions for like service and helping others. And it was winter after my first year at Duke, winter of 2020. We started working together on Insects for Humanity, and just been going forward since then.
Wow, so it's two people kind of on the ground doing the work, and you have a board. How many people on the board?
5 board members and then 3 advisory board members.
Oh, wow. And so are they like people, I'm imagining like people, like middle-aged people in like careers and all that. Is
exactly,
that right?
Yeah, that's the case, yeah.
So LinkedIn, huh?
Yeah.
You just reach out and wow.
I just posted the job application on LinkedIn and like all these people applied. I was just like blown away. I was like, holy cow.
Wow, like for anyone listening, like if you wanted to do something like this but were fearful and didn't know what to do, man, this is like such good advice. Just go for it.
Exactly, yeah. Like I learned all those months ago. Instead of just planning or like being afraid of the uncertainty, it's just jump in blindly and just hope things will work out. Like that was my strategy.
But I do think though it's nice to have like kind of the structure that you have, right? So like you had the understanding to know that you needed to set up so are nonprofits incorporated?
They're incorporated.
You have to do your incorporation. You have to like file for tax exempt nonprofit status, all that. So like those things like you should do, and the fact that you knew to recruit a board of directors, that's also very helpful, right? Because some people might not even know that step.
That is true.
So is there anything like structurally that might be obvious to you, but
that is, I guess that is true. Maybe not jump in completely blind, but with an idea that you just need the basic knowledge, like not an in-depth knowledge of like how to recruit, how to manage a board, how to do all this paperwork. Just like a very high level knowledge, right? And just use that as your springboard to sort of fuel action. Because like the worst thing that, I mean, I'm just a 19-year-old naive sort of kid who still doesn't know much in life. But I think the worst thing whether it's nonprofit, for-profit, any entrepreneur can find themselves in is indecision and the fear of the uncertainty that's sort of paralyzing them to indecision. Like you just need to pick a path and just run with it. Focus on action rather than research. Like research is still helpful, but
Right. So it sounds like you for sure knew what you wanted to do. You knew that you needed to get all the forms filled out to become a nonprofit. You also knew that you needed to have people in the board. Yeah, you needed to have board members. Did you know specifically that you wanted 5 board members and 3 advisory board members, or was that just something you landed on?
Just landed on. That's how it worked out.
Okay. So you didn't know the number, but you knew that you needed them, and also you knew to because it was something you wanted to do that's not in Atlanta. You knew that you wanted to partner up with the NGO, kind of on the spot, on the grounds of Congo, right? You know, that's with that basic kind of framework. You did the research to figure out like what possible prototypes you could create to produce a new method of farming, and just through networking, you actually found your partner.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah. See, like it doesn't take much. I think a lot of people get, like you were saying, crippled with like fear of not knowing. But it doesn't take super in-depth knowledge of this stuff to kind of just go out and get it done. Yeah.
Exactly. And still, like I would say, I'm definitely not an expert in insect farming. Like the sort of breakthrough we had was pretty much purely a guess. Like it still makes me laugh to just realize I was just sitting there in our sort of Congolese, little area where I was staying and just thinking, what stuff could I combine to, actually produce larvae? And it was like a complete guess, but it ended up working.
Yeah.
And just, you don't really need the hyper technical, hyper professional background. Just like a determination to see things through, like come hell or high water, like you'll get things done.
Wow, that's awesome. So for people listening who want to help, like what, let's say, we're not talking about like experts, right? We're just talking about like regular people who want to help. Like how would they go about helping? Like, do you even need help, first of all, I guess?
I think right now we'll need help later on. Right now we're focusing on prototyping, sort of optimizing the model for farming these larvae. And that's more of a thing between the organization like us and our partner CADIM in the Congo. Yeah. But moving forward, we'll definitely need like sort of that financial help as we have our ideal model and as we expand partnerships across Africa and across the world to sort of scale insect farming. Then we'll need financial support. But right now it's more of a just an effort between us and our NGO partner.
Yeah. So when that time comes, please let us know. And yeah, I'm sure there are many people out there who would want to help. And who knows? There might be people who want to take a trip out to the Congo and do the work with you.
Yeah, that would be
maybe
awesome.
Risk getting malaria with you. I mean, who knows? If you ever need any help like that, I'm sure the community, I mean, people who listen to the podcast. I'm sure there are people out there who would want to help. So
exactly.
Yeah. So let's get to the actually, like when you posted all those, like you're on like cranes and stuff like that. But let me ask you, was it legal?
I can't say if it was legal or not.
Okay.
Likely no. But to me, it seemed definitely not justifiable. But it seemed less harmful than other things I could do because it wasn't causing other people harm. Like maybe it caused me harm. But
But what was like what in your mind made you think, hey, like I should go climb this crane? Like,
I actually grew up very afraid of heights. Like a very sort of shy, afraid kid. And I hated that. I was like, I really want to bust out of my bubble of just being afraid of a lot of different things. I was very timid, very afraid. And I just remember thinking, what could I do that's just absolutely crazy that would, force me to challenge my fears? And then I remember getting to Duke and exploring Durham and seeing this really tall construction crane. I was like, maybe if we climbed that would, sort of get me out of my fear of heights. And just, I was like, let's do it. And one night by myself, went and climbed the crane. Really scary experience, I will say. As I was climbing, like halfway up, the wind was pretty strong. And it rained the night before too. Not only was it slippery, like the crane was made out of steel, so it was like really slippery. And I was wearing Vans. And like these very slippery shoes. Yeah,
the worst shoes you could wear to climb something.
Exactly. Yeah, really slippery. And the wind was just like kind of wobbling the crane back and forth. And I was just scared, like out of my mind. Like just because the heights, but also the fact I could fall off, get blown off, slip off, whatever. But I get to the top, and just that view of Durham. It's like a really beautiful city. Just having this really sort of picturesque view of Durham was just breathtaking. I was like shivering because I was so afraid, but at the same time it was just remarkably beautiful. I remember climbing back down from that crane. It was just a flood of a feeling of accomplishment. I was like, I was scared as hell, but I did it. I faced my fears and I overcame it. And like now I don't climb cranes. Just full disclosure.
I'm glad to hear that.
It was just like a one time, like a little while of my life, just to sort of get out of my comfort zone. But I think I definitely learned a lesson, like just a meaningful life lesson. It just wasn't some reckless, some college boy just doing some reckless things.
I guess in college there are way worse things you could do in the name of self discovery. So was that kind of the same idea for you? I think you mentioned abandoned prisons.
Oh yeah. I used to it's called urbex, or urban exploring. And I used to explore like these abandoned hotels, abandoned colleges, abandoned prisons, etc. And dangerous at times. You don't meet the best of people when you're exploring. And
you met people while you were
other explorers who aren't as kind as you would like them to be. And just there's a lot of hazards, like you get stuck and you can like in a hole or something. Like these are really old buildings.
Things can collapse, right?
Exactly. And there's like all these weird sounds. It's at night too, and I'm alone with a flashlight and just a pocket knife, and it's just like it's really scary all around you. And I was also scared out of my balls at that time. I'm looking back, a lot of the illegal things I did because I was scared of them. I hated being scared of those things. So I'm like, screw it. Let's face our fears and come out as a better person. But I actually learned a lot too. Like it was very interesting experience.
But what kind of people did you meet? Like, how were they not kind people?
No, there were people who also recognized that the activity they were doing was illegal. And so they were sort of, very withdrawn, very not welcoming.
Right.
Like, if you go to a restaurant, you're welcomed in. You're like, hey, what would you like? How you doing? But when you meet people at abandoned prisons, they're like, get out of here.
Right.
I'm exploring. Don't want to mingle with you and whatnot.
Yeah.
But nothing bad happened though. Never got hurt. Worst thing that happened was probably taking a little bit of asbestos here and there, but it's all worth it.
Yeah.
For the memories.
Yeah. So I will say this. Well, kind of circling back to the malaria thing. Like your parents are like freaking out, obviously, right? Like I remember, like my mom telling me, because like our parents are friends, right?
Yeah.
So like my parents heard from your parents, and so I remember like we were all like, oh, we gotta really pray for Josh, like make sure he gets home safe. So there you gotta consider that, right? There is the fear. I mean, you say it's not harmful to other people, but if something bad happens, dang, that's a huge impact to your community.
Exactly, and that's sort of why I stopped doing all this risky stuff. Just like out of respect for the people who do care for me.
Yeah.
Like I might find it okay, but other people might not. But like even with malaria, even with everything I put myself through, like it's just those are the moments where I uncovered so many of my most meaningful life lessons. Like malaria, for example. Like I found it amusing, but and then it got serious. But like even like despite the experience I went through, like just the fact I could endure malaria and still have that sort of resolute determination to sort of see my nonprofit through. Yeah. Sort of just revealed to me like the lengths I was willing to go to for my nonprofit. Like if I was willing to put my life on the line, then nothing will get in the way between me and my goals. And so
and that is awesome. I think the impulse to kind of face your fears, to overcome them, isn't something that many people have, and a lot of people live their entire lives with their fears, never having overcome them. So I definitely commend you for doing that, and like the drive to see your vision through with your NGO, your nonprofit. Man, that's awesome. Like it's not even a selfish thing. Like when we talked about earlier in the podcast, when I was like, oh wait, is this proprietary knowledge? Like, are you allowed to share this? When you said no, if more people find out about it and they can use it, that's great. So I think, yeah, that's kind of in this world that we live in now. Like, it's easy to be jaded by and like skeptical of people's intentions, especially with, like the bad forms of capitalism where it's like money over everything kind of mentality. Now, yeah, it's easy to be jaded and skeptical of anything that anybody does. But the fact that you're kind of going at it with, I just want to make it available for people so that it can enrich their lives, better their lives, I think that's really commendable and admirable. So, yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah. No wonder Duke gave you $10,000 to go out and do all this stuff. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, but appreciate it though.
Yeah. So, we're closing in on an hour. And I think we're gonna wrap up. But any last thoughts that you wanted to share with your experience, or anything you wanted to let the people know about?
I guess I'll just close with this. Just whatever goal you have in mind, like business or not business, like no matter how crazy, no matter how out of the world it may seem, just work towards a goal. Like there's a lot of uncertainty, but just work towards a goal and have faith that things will work out. Even if you experience a lot of failures on the way, like those failures will like be sort of the springboard you learn your lessons from, and those lessons will be the fuel for your success. And so just keep at it and work towards outrageous goals and ambitions. That's all I have to say.
That's awesome. That is really great. Thank you so much for being here. I learned a lot. I actually thought I was just going to learn about insects and their benefits, but even about like how your outlook on life should be. I learned a lot today. So thank you so much. Thank you guys for listening out there. I'm going to put up Josh's Instagram on the post on our Instagram. So are you okay with people reaching out if they want to like connect with you regarding this?
Yeah, for sure. I actually deleted my Instagram a while back, but you could just text me like 216-767-3598. Like I'd be more than happy to talk anytime.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so if you guys are interested in this kind of space and you want to connect with Josh, there you go. You got his number.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks, man.